In this presentation, we will take a look at a profit and loss report with a vertical analysis within QuickBooks Online. Here we are in our free test drive file for Craig's Design and Landscaping. We're going to go down here to the reports. Once again, looking at the reports, we're going to be working on the standard tab up top. And we're looking at our favorite report, or one of the two of them, that profit and loss report. We're going to make some adjustments to the profit and loss report. First, we're going to go up top, however, and change the dates from 01/01/20 to 12/31/20. That's January through December. Actually, let's make it 2019. 01/01/19 to 12/31/19. That's January through December 2019. Then we're going to go ahead and run that report. Then we're going to duplicate this report by going to the report tab up top, right-clicking on that tab up top and duplicating it. Now we have the report on the left-hand side, and we can do any other kind of stuff we need to do on the right-hand side in terms of right and left tabs open. So we're on the profit and loss tab. I'm going to remove the hamburger from sight, and then we're going to be increasing the size by holding down Control. I'm going to bring it on up to 125. So now we have our standard profit and loss report. What we'd like to see now, we worked with some percentages last time when we had a comparative percentages. You can call that a horizontal analysis in terms of the horizontal percentages when we had time over time, period over period, in terms of the period over period change, percentage change. This time, we're going to do what's called a vertical analysis. We're going to be comparing two percentages in and of itself. So more percentages, which obviously everybody loves percentages. So now we're going to have kind of like a vertical analysis percentages. So we have our profit and loss. You'll recall the profit and loss is income minus expenses. You could break pretty much everything down to income minus expenses, then get down to that bottom line, the net income line. Now the objective of the profit and loss is to generate revenue, which are the income lines. So up here, this income, the generation of income, is the whole purpose from an accounting standpoint of the business, right? You have the assets so you can generate revenue in the future. You have the liabilities that are hopefully helping you generate revenue as you generate the liabilities. And you have the expenses on the income statement. Those were balance sheet accounts. The expenses on the income statement down here, which are you're expending in order to help you generate revenue. That's the point of the expenses. So why don't we then make some kind of ratio analysis to compare everything on the income statement to the purpose of the income statement, the generation of income. So we're then going to be considering the income line and comparing every other number to it, and that's going to be kind of our vertical analysis. So let's do that. To do that, we're going to go up top, and we will be selecting a period. So we're going to select this drop down, and we're scrolling down, and we're looking for the percentage of income. So we want to just take that percentage of income, and there we have it. We're going to say OK and run that report. And that'll basically compare everything to the income line. So this might take a little bit longer to understand why we would do this in the horizontal analysis, but it makes sense. It's useful to do. So in other words, you'll note that this income line down here is 100% at 100%, which means obviously we're taking the income line of the 10200.77 divided by itself 10200.77, which is 1. Move the decimal place over 2 places, 100%. And then all the income above it, we're comparing to it as well. We're comparing everything to that line. So for example, this services amount is the 503.55 divided by the 10200.77. And that, if I move the decimal place over, is 4.94 about rounded. So there's that. And so everything is going to be compared to it. So if I look to the bottom line of income, everything above it, and usually there's only a couple income numbers. Usually we don't have this many income numbers. Usually most companies, if they're not like construction or companies, will have a couple things that they do, and therefore there won't be a lot of income lines, right? But here we have a lot of income lines, and all those income lines up above represent how much or the percentage of that total income line down below. So that makes sense. And then the ones below it, if you think about the items below it, we're thinking about how much of the expenses did we incur in relation compared to the income line. So in other words, if we were to take, say, the 75 or 74.86 divided by the 200.77 and move the decimal places 2 places over, it's 0.73%. So the advertising is only 0.73% of the total income. That's pretty low. So if we go, depending on, some people do a lot of advertising. So then if we go to the automobile, we can go down here and we can see this relationship of the expenses. We're not comparing the expenses to what you might expect, like what's the biggest expense, comparing the expense line to the total expenses, which might be useful, and we may take a look at that later. We're not comparing it to the total expense line. We're comparing the expenses to the revenue, because the revenue is what we're incurring the expenses for. So what percentage of the expenses as it relates to revenue? Now, you would think most of the time if you sell a lot of inventory, cost of goods sold would be the big one, because if you're selling inventory, the cost of the inventory you sell is usually the largest expense. But in any case, you'd want to go down here and be able to look at these percentages and compare them and see where your largest line items are. If you're benchmarking to somebody else, benchmarking this information to like another company, then this, again, a very useful tool, because you can't really compare the dollar amounts if you're comparing to someone that's a larger company than you are. However, you can do a comparison of the percentages, and therefore it could be a useful tool when you're trying to compare this information to larger companies. Okay, let's do our standard process, our standard kind of customization up top. We're going to customize the report. We are going to remove the pennies. Let's remove the cents. I'm going to scroll back down. I'm going to go to the header and footer tab. Or let's make the negative numbers bracketed and make them show in red. And then let's remove the date prepared, time prepared, report basis. And then do we need to change the name at all? If we look at the name, profit and loss, I'm going to add to it vertical analysis, I think that's right, I hope. And then we'll run that report. All right, so there we've made it look the way we're used to seeing it. So there we have that. Let's scroll back up top. And then, now notice what it didn't do. It didn't remove like the decimals on the percentages. So if you want to do that, that's again something you could do in Excel. That's one of those things that you could do in Excel. And so let's go back up top, and now we're going to think about exporting this information. Or let's save it. That's what I was trying to think of. We're going to save or customize it. So I'll save it, and then we'll scroll back up down, and we'll memorize that report. So if I go back into it, then we'll have the standard layout of it. Then I'm going to go and print this out. So we could email it, but now we got like 4 reports, and if we want to send all of them, that's a lot of emails. We'd like to group them together. We can download it in some way as a PDF file and then attach them on one email, but still 4 reports. It'd be nice to at least zip it. I'm going to go ahead and print it and download it with the use of the Qt PDF printer. We're going to print this report. I'm going to send it to the printer of the Qt PDF printer, which will in essence just print it or save it as a PDF file. It's going to then ask us where do we want to put it. I'm going to put it into our profit and loss folder, and I'm going to call it let's just say P&L vertical analysis. And we'll save that. Close this back out. Then I'm going to export it to Excel. So I'm going to hit the drop down. We're going to export it to Excel. So there's our Excel information. Let's open that up. Then we'll go through our standard process. Does it fit on one page? I'm going to go over here and say, let's look at the page layout. It does. So it fits on one page. If I go back over to the left, that's okay. Now notice again, these percentages, I might want to get, maybe I don't want the decimals. So I could select this entire column and say, hey, I'd like to remove the decimals or the format. Notice the format of here. I'm going to highlight the whole thing. See if I can do it this way. And we'll make it a percentage. And so there we go. So there we have a percentage, and we remove the decimals. So then I might want to like remove the total up top, and I might want to get rid of this underline number here and get rid of that border. I might want to delete a cell, a whole row, to space it a little bit differently. So you can do some other options within Excel, of course. Now what I'd like to do is open the other Excel file that we had been using, and we're going to save this tab to it. So I'm going to open the prior Excel file. So here's the prior file with 3 tabs. I'm going to add another tab to it with a little plus icon, and I'm just going to call this P&L vert analysis, something like that. And then I'm going to go back to the prior tab. I'm going to copy the whole thing either with this triangle or selecting somewhere over here and saying Control A, right click or Control C and copy. Then I'm going to go back to our new tab. It has to be an A1 or select the entire tab, right click and paste or Control V. So there's our information. Looks good. Now we have all these reports. I'm going to go ahead and save this. Then I'm going to print it as a PDF file by going to the File tab up top. I'm going to print it as a PDF file. We're going to print the entire workbook. So we'll print the entire workbook, which is now 8 pages down below. And then we're going to export it to our PDF printer, which will in essence save it as a PDF file. It's going to then ask us where do we want to save it. And I'm going to put it into the prior folder. We'll put it right there. I'm going to save it over that file and say yes and save. And so what we have now, if I close these out, I'm going to say that don't save that one. We can send this out. Now we have 1, 2, 3, 4 files, and we could send them out with one email with 4 attachments, or we can put them in one file and then zip it so we can send it with one file. I'm going to close that out now or delete it. We could send the Excel file if we needed to for some reason, or we can send one PDF file with all the documents in one PDF file. So one email, one file with all the PDFs in it.